Cinematic stories, and those especially of fantasy, often follow set philosophies and themes which drive their narrative structure. This is emphasized by Joseph Campbell, claiming from his study on stories and folktales that, quote, the same story was often being told, yet in an infinite variety of ways. Campbell identifies this as the hero's journey, also known as the monomyth, a ubiquitous template that provides a structure for the story and the physical and mental journey of the hero. Campbell's theory can be applied to Robert Eggers' The Northman, a tale of commonality, reveling in intertextuality and conforming to Campbell's monomyth theory. However, while conforming, it simultaneously seeks to subvert the nature of the monomyth, offering a revitalized and innovative examination of the classic hero's tale. This essay will discuss the various stages of Campbell's monomyth in The Northman, as well as the film's tendency to simultaneously convert these iconic narrative tropes. Fate is the primary thematic concern in The Northman, with the primary protagonist Monomyth bound to a destiny he cannot escape. The aspects of fate and inescapable destiny are facets of Campbell's monomyth, where he writes that destiny has summoned the hero. In this sense, the notions of fate and destiny seem to glorify the predetermination of the monomyth, and of course, these thematic elements are present in other monomyth films, such as The Lion King and Conan the Barbarian.
Remember who you are.
Remember the oath to right the wrong.
These not only allow us to understand fate's concern in the monomyth, but the monomyth as an intertextual technique. The notions of destiny conversely inherit the phases that the protagonist undertakes throughout the film. These can be identified through three main phases: departure, initiation, and return. The departure stage begins by establishing the protagonist in their ordinary world. However, this ordinary life that the future hero clings to is challenged. Monomyth's father is killed by his uncle Fjolnir, who usurps the throne of the kingdom. This can be identified as an unintentional call to adventure, which is discussed by Williams, who states that the call to adventure separates the person from their previous life and is characterized by grief and anxiety. However, to a certain extent, the Northman has two calls to adventure. The departure stage is also characterized by the refusal of the call, where the film fast forwards years later to when Monomyth has become a Viking, seemingly forgetting his true destiny of avenging his father. It is only when the seeress presents Monomyth with an invitation of revenge that his journey truly begins.
The prince, returned from his fate.
This archetypal character is identified by Vogler as the herald in the monomyth, a neutral character who sets the journey in motion. Following Monomyth's call to avenge his father, he undergoes the initiation stage of the monomyth. This is characterized by him crossing the first threshold. By leaving his directionless life of bloodlust, Monomyth abandons his former life to commit to change and cross the threshold into the unfamiliar. Having crossed this threshold, this stage of the narrative will test the protagonist through a series of trials. It is during this stage where Monomyth encounters a threshold guardian, which Connolly describes as an archetype that blocks his or her passage in an environment of great power. Monomyth's duel with the Mound Dweller grants him the Draugr, a magical sword that is fated for him to carry out his quest. In many ways, this is a deviation from the monomyth, as generally the key item for the journey is given by the supernatural aid.
This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight. Not as clumsy or random as a blaster.
The return marks the culmination of the journey, and especially in the Northman's case, the phase that completes our protagonist's character arc. For the Northman especially, the phase of women as temptress crafts Monomyth's development in the return. In the second act, Monomyth is presented a dilemma, where he must
choose between kindness for your kin or hate for your enemies.
Yet in the third act of the film, Monomyth chooses both. The journey, and subsequently meeting Olga as a love interest, has granted Monomyth a newfound sense of humanity. He retains the rageful vengeance that ignited his journey, yet through his vengeance, saves Olga and her future children from the cyclical clutches of violence. Evidently, this is the phase where the monomyth is subverted. As Campbell suggests, the ordinary monomyth protagonist crosses the return threshold, retaining the wisdom gained on his quest and returning to an ordinary world. Yet Monomyth never returns, instead reaching atonement through his destined vengeance. The Northman is not only a conformity to the hero's journey, but a subversion of it at the same time. It may follow the set narrative and character archetypes, yet it suggests the inescapable path of vengeance and ultimately how not everyone returns home.